Good morning, students. We are successfully finished for first midterm test. After the test, we discuss in the first class for Unit 3, Matter Around Us. Okay, so what is the discussing about for this lesson? So what is the elements, what is the components, and what is the mixture, and what is the atom? Okay, so these are all discussing about this topic, this lesson Unit 3. Okay, so we see the one picture, the elements, components, and mixers. Okay, so what is the element? For example, say hydrogen. Okay, hydrogen H2. Okay, so if you then call the elements, components, water H2O. So combining of the two atoms H2O is called components. Mixer, hydrogen plus oxygen. Okay, so hydrogen and oxygen, the mixer is called a mixer. Okay, so if you same for mixer, hydrogen plus oxygen only, same only. So if you then discussing about what is the element, what is the components, and what is the mixers also for a when here. Okay, we are 600 is already learning for basic concept of atoms and elements and components also. Okay, now if you are learning of objectives, if you then this lesson, if you to understanding of molecules of elements and components. So understanding about what is the elements and what is the components, and if you recognize the symbol of the common elements, if you examples of hydrogen, it's mean H2, oxygen is mean O2. Okay, so suppose if you neon is mean Ne, suppose if you helium is mean He. So if you recognize the symbol of elements also, if you're discussing about this lesson, able to calculate them atomicity commonly used of elements, atomicity number, atomic number and mass number, atomicity of values also if you're discussing for this lesson. So if recognizing the occurrence of elements and components, nature of human body and hair. Okay, so what is the daily life if you're using of if you entirely surrounding, if you're mixing in our daily life of elements also discussed in here, and then understanding the effect of temperature on if understanding effect of temperature, solid, liquid, and gas. Okay, what is the changes of solid, liquid, gas if in a externally given of temperature or naturally given of the temperature? So what is the changes is also if we're discussing about this lesson. Okay, so and we are discussing the first concept. We know that then everything we see around that occupy the space and having the mass is called matter. So what is the definition is explained here. If you around us occupy the space and having the mass is called matter. Okay, you see the pen, if we are having for the mass, if we occupy them some phases, okay, in universe, correct? So it's called matter. Okay, if we entirely this book, okay, having the mass and occupy the some phases in the classroom, correct? So it's also called matter. Okay, so but does not having the mass hence or not matter. If you not occupy the space in of entire universe in your classroom, okay, it's not for a matter. Okay, so and if you do you have now what is the matter is compressed of. Okay, so we studied the earlier that that matter is composed in a tiny little particles which cannot be seen the naked eye, and it is understanding these particles are. Okay, so you know that already. If you what is the matter, matter is a very tiny particles, and we cannot see the very if you naked eye we cannot see about the we cannot see the say about the naked eye. Okay, and is already 600 we explained for of atoms. Okay, so what is the atoms? The graphite refill used in pencil is made up the element is called carbon, correct? If using the pencil, okay, the graphite, see, if you're writing the portion is called the graphite portion, correct? So that is the portion. So graphite portion is made of the carbon only. Okay, so if a graphite refill using the pencil is made of the element is called carbon, we can they break the graphite into the smaller and smaller pieces. Suppose if we cut the graphite, in fact, we have then even the finer of knife. We can break the even smaller. If we keep the cutting is a mismatch of graphite into the smaller and smaller particles, we will reaching the point whereas reach smaller of constants of graphite, the graphite, the carbon atom. Okay, so if you break that the carbon atom apart, then will be no longer they exhibit the properties of carbon. The reason no exhibited the properties of carbon of point is called before point of the graphite is called atom. Okay, is not exhibited the properties of the matter. Carbon is mean carbon properties, hydrogen is mean hydrogen properties, oxygen is mean oxygen properties. That is not exhibited the condition. That condition before of particles is called atom. Okay, I understand. If taken off graphite, the graphite is exhibited for the carbon of properties. If we cut at the graphite, then one stage is there is no exhibited the carbon properties that before of the species is called atom. Okay, and after the phys that does not exhibited the for of properties of carbon, so there only is not a atom. Okay, so before portion is before physis is called an atom. Okay, not only for the of carbon, if all the atoms if exhibited the same properties only. Okay, and if a smallest unit on elements that exhibited the properties of the element is called atom. Okay, what is the atom? The smallest unit of elements they exhibit the properties of elements is called atom. Okay, so if a carbon is exhibited the smallest spaces is called atom, and all the matters is composed in tiny particles is already you know. Okay, is called of atom. Water, rice, short, everything we around is made of the atom only, not only for of water, rice. If the entire of universe is made up for only atom only. Okay, occupy the phase is very important. And an atoms of basic unit of matter, structure of atom. Even the best of optical microscope we cannot see the atom. Okay, so very advanced material or instrument microscope is cannot be seen of atom. But however, there are the advanced of instruments help us the image atom on surface of material. Okay, so if you surface of material, if you taken off uh, one of silicon is a material. The material how can occupy the atom in the silicon material, that is a weave only, is an imaginary of weave only is given here. Okay, so for example, so following of figures as in the imaging of surface of silicon. Okay, is not a atom, is a matter, is a silicon the occupied for of atoms, how can is occupied, that's only the imaginary of taken up point of question. Okay, if you already if you're discussing about of previous of sixth lesson, sixth sorry you were studying of sixth standard. Okay, then basic elements of atom, electron, proton, neutron. Okay, so that is the same concept. If a structure of weaving of the silicon, how can occupy then electron surrounding the nucleus. Okay, what is the nucleus? Proton plus neutron is a combination is called nucleus. Okay, so how can is occupy the space in the of a particular of material is also for a viewing for of some of advanced of microscope. Okay, and if your most of abundant type of atoms in universe is a hydrogen, correct? One more question. If your universe entirely, if your most of abundance of if you atom is called hydrogen, if nearly 74 percentage of atoms is universe and occupied of hydrogen. Okay, however on earth there are the three most abundant atoms are iron, oxygen, silicon. Okay, so it's also one more question. The earth, the three most of abundant atom, iron, oxygen and silicon also. Okay, and molecules, the next topic we discuss is the and molecules. Okay, when your atoms combine with another atoms or atoms. Okay, and form of a components is called molecules. What is a molecules? If having the two more question maybe, what is a molecules? When your atoms combine with another atom or atoms, and formation of components is called molecules. A molecule is made of the two or more atoms are chemically combined. That is the answer. Define molecules. Define molecules is a defined molecules the answer. A molecule is made of the two or more atoms is chemically combined. How can the chemically combined for the more more atoms? If you examples oxygen gas in air, if we are breathe in the made of the two oxygen, okay, the chemically combined. So oxygen plus oxygen, if you combine the is called oxygen. If you using for a breath, okay, so if your one atoms is combined to the same atoms is called of molecules, okay. And then ozone, the ozone is a substance of made of the three oxygen atom is chemically combined. Oxygen, 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 if it chemically combined is O3 is called ozone, okay. An atom of hydrogen, sorry, oxygen, and two atoms are hydrogen H2, so combining is molecules is called water. If you generally you are using of daily life in water, how can its formation, how can its formation is mean? If you one one sorry, hydrogen plus oxygen is gives to H2O, okay. So H2O is a water of molecules formula. Suppose the same concept, if you have two hydrogen and oxygen is combining up to H2O, correct only, no? So hydrogen water molecule and water molecule, that is a meaning, okay. And if a molecules also say exhibit the properties of matter and having an individual existence, okay. So the molecules are exhibit the properties of matter. If a hydrogen plus oxygen, if a combining is water, if a water is individual of properties exhibited, okay. So yeah, molecules can be formed by same or different kinds of atoms, okay. Same or is mean oxygen is ozone is oxygen plus oxygen plus oxygen, so same. But if your water is hydrogen plus oxygen, is different. If you have made of the same or different of also if exhibited of the molecules of conditions, okay. And if your molecules can be then can be classified in as follow. So what is, how can then classified of the molecules? If your molecules which contains of only one atom is called monoatomic molecules, is examples of inner gas, okay. So what is that inner gas? If your helium, neon, argon is also for inner gas of examples. If you are made of them monoatomic single atoms is having is mean is called of monoatomic of gas, okay. And molecules which contains up to two atoms is called diatomic, okay. Di is mean two, mono is mean single, okay. So diatomic molecules. If examples of oxygen is no high H2, nitrogen nitrogen N2, and nitrogen H2 is also for of two atoms is having here, okay. A molecule is contains three atoms are called triatomic. Tri is mean three, okay. So triatomic molecules. If you ozone, already you know the ozone O3, okay. So carbon dioxide CO3, carbon dioxide, sulfur dioxide is also for a three uh, three atoms is combined, okay. So if a molecules is contains of more than of three is called the polyatomic of molecules. Polyatomic of molecules, if action of suppose if phosphorus, sulfur, phosphorus, if P5, okay, is also for of more than of three atoms is called of polyatomic molecules, okay. um, we're discussing the next class. Thank you.